Hello, 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 everyone. Can you listen to me?
Yes, Professor.
All
Yes,
right. Good evening,
Yes, teacher.
Tanya,
Good
good
Flor,
evening.
evening.
Gabriel. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Professor. How are you?
Fine, fine. Thank you. Just we are getting to the end of the year, no? The final months of the year.
Yeah,
Let's hope
yes.
the next year will be better than this.
We hope so.
Yes, yes. Maybe we can come back to our normal reality because we have now an uncommon reality, no?
Oh,
Well, so here we are going to start. Yeah, so some partners are coming. Just give me a second. Oh, I'm going to accept you partners. Yeah, all right. Yeah, as you know, today we are in the second session of this module 9. No, this is one of the last. And this is related to how to teach grammar. No, remember what I told you the last session? These two first classes are related to grammar, and the other two, next Saturday and the other one, we're gonna talk about the vocabulary. No, so today we're finishing with the grammar, and then we're going to continue with the vocabulary. No, but remember, these are not separated module. This module is related to these two topics, grammar and vocabulary. And then the last module is related to the ICT. No, this is our last module of this program. No. Well, so we are going to start talking with this topic. Today we are going to talk about different ideas and different ways to present and teach grammar. That's why here the title says presenting and teaching grammar. All right. So we are going to talk about this in this session. All right. So, but first we are going to make a review, no? A review what we did the last lesson, the last session. We were talking about some definitions on grammar, no? Remember, according to David Crystal, grammar is the structural foundation of our ability to express ourselves. No? The more we are aware of how it works, the more we can monitor the meaning and effectiveness of the way we and others use the language. No, so don't forget about the definition of grammar. No, so it's so important. It's necessary to know grammar, and it's better to write grammatically than not. But it's well to remember that grammar is common speech formulated. No, usage is the only test. So don't forget about these two definitions of grammar related to the ability to express ourselves. No? How efficient we use the language. No, this is very important in grammar. No, how efficient we use the language to express something. No, all right. Then we talked about the three-dimensional grammar framework. Can you remember about the three-dimensional grammar framework? Can you remember about it? There are three important aspects when we analyze a grammatical structure. Can you remember about that? What are the three aspects that we analyze in a grammatical structure and we must know? Can you remember?
Structure,
Uh-huh.
meaning,
Yeah.
semantics, teaching, and pragmatics.
Yeah, that's it. Very good. The form, the meaning, and the use. No? In simple words, we must know these three aspects. So we are going to analyze the form, the meaning, and the use. No, remember that we have this. This pi, no, related to these three aspects of grammar. No, form is related, as your partner says, is related to the structure, how we make
Structure.
this. Exactly, how we make this grammatical structure. The meaning is related to the semantics. No? We are going to talk about the message of this structure. No? And finally, we have the use. is related to pragmatics. No? It's related to pragmatics. How we use, notice how, in which context we are going to use this grammatical structure. No? That's why here says the appropriate context. All right? So, don't forget when we talk about a form and structure, we are going to analyze the morphosyntactic and lexical patterns. So it's related to morphology and syntax. And also we are going to analyze the vocabulary. Remember, oops, don't forget please your microphones. Yeah, all right. So here we're going to talk about the vocabulary. Remember, lexical refers to the vocabulary. And also we are going to talk about the phonemic and graphemic patterns. No? So we were talking about one example, no, of the apostrophe S, or the S that we add to the simple present, no, or the ED that we add to the simple past regular verbs. So we are going to make a relationship between the graphemes and the phonemes. No, we are going to use different phones to produce this characteristic, no, of the verb in past. Then, in the meaning and semantics, we have the lexical meaning and the grammatical meaning, no? So some words have a grammatical function and some words have a lexical function, no? That's why here we talk about the semantics, a lexical meaning and a grammatical meaning. And finally, we have the use, the pragmatics, the praxis. So it means to put into practice. You use this structure in some situations, in some contexts, to express some purposes. No? Here we call this the purposes of communication. No? Depending on the purpose, you change the structure, right? And this is a linguistic discourse context and presuppositions about a context. All right, so don't forget about these three important aspects when we talk about grammatical structure. We are going to analyze the form, the meaning, the use. Remember, form is how is it formed, how is it made. The meaning, what does it mean? The use, when and why is it used? And don't forget these three simple questions in order to identify the three important aspects in a grammatical structure. All right. Then at the end of the last session, we were talking about just a brief part, how to present grammar, no? And we have here two main ways, no? Explicitly and implicitly. So we are going to talk about these two ways. Explicitly, we have inductively, it means rule discovery, or deductively, rule driven. So in simple words, inductively means that you are going to discover, you're going to make your students discover the rule, to find out the rule. You don't tell them. On the other side, that deductively, you explain, you say, you tell the rule to the students, the grammatical structure to your students. So this is the two major ways, no? In order to present or to teach grammar, no? Inductively or deductively. So today we're going to talk about this, and also how to use the other way, no? To teach or present grammar implicitly. So here you have these different ways to present grammar. Most of the time, no? Most of the time, I think we use the deductively, no? Because in some way, no? In some way, it's not too long, no? You don't need too much time to do this way to present grammar, no? But the others too, you need more time to do it, all right? Now, let's start talking about this, okay? So implicitly, remember, no over grammar explanation, yeah? So here you then explain the rule, So you make your students use these structures, sometimes unconsciously, and then you pass to the conscious analysis of these structures. So let's see here. And we are going to start, oh, some of your partners are coming. All right, yeah. So here on the first part, we are going to talk about how we are going to present the grammar. Remember, grammar presentation and practice activities should be evaluated according to. There are some aspects that we are going to evaluate in order to present and practice the grammar aspect of language. So here you have the E factor. So it means how efficient they are. They are easy, not so difficult. And the A factor, how appropriate they are. The appropriacy, remember the use, appropriate context. You're going to use some grammatical structures in appropriate context. So in order to analyze these activities, remember, we're talking about the activities to present and activities to practice grammar. So we are going to focus in these two aspects. No? The E factor is how efficient they are, and the A factor, how appropriate they are. So it is very important to remember that. So when we talk about the efficiency of an activity, we are going to determine by its economy. How time efficient is it? Notice the time, if it is too long or it's not too long. So that's why here says, how time efficient is it? Its ease, how easy it is to set up. So that's what I told you, no? It is an easy structure or not so easy structure. Its efficacy, is it consistent with good learning principles? So notice we analyze here the E factor. We are going to analyze the time, how easy is it, how efficient is it, and if it is according to the good learning principles. Now, the other aspect is related to the appropriacy. So here we're going to take into account the learner's needs and interests, and learner's attitudes and expectations. And notice here that we are going to take into account our students. Notice our students' needs, our students' interests, attitudes, and expectations. So here, in order to analyze these two factors, in order to develop, here we're talking about the activities, in order to develop different activities to present or to practice grammar. So we are going to analyze these two aspects, all right? The E factor, how efficient is it? And the A factor, how appropriate is it? Efficient means, or it's related to how easy, or if it is too long, no? Because sometimes when we do an activity related to grammar and it's too long, students are going to get bored, right? So here says that our activities, in order to present and practice grammar, they don't have to be too long, all right? And also they have to be connected, no, with the learner's needs and interests. So we have to make our students be interested in this topic of grammar, no, the aspect of grammar, and also their attitudes, no, and expectations. So notice this is important to consider. Oh, another person, yeah. When we develop some activities, no, to present and teach grammar, no, practice grammar. Now we are going to continue talking about this deductive method. Yeah, remember that we talk about the deductive method relies on reasoning, analyzing, and comparing. Notice that we are going to use this method in order to present grammar. But this method is based on reasoning, analyzing, and comparing. What kind of procedures are we going to use when we use this method, the deductive method? We are going to present an example, no? The presentation of an example, the explanation, we are going to compare, no? So that's why here says comparison may be done between the target language and the native language, no? So here in this method, remember, in this method, sometimes we are going to compare, no? The L1 to the L2 structure, no? The native language with the target language or the foreign language. So we are going to make a comparison in the deductive method because we're going to reason, we are going to analyze, and we are going to compare. Students practice producing sentences with given prompts. So we give our students some structures to follow or to be followed. And with these structure, with these items, with these prompts, they are going to produce sentences. Notice here the procedures that we're going to do when we use this method. No? Remember that when we talk about this, no? The deductive and inductive way. So first, remember, you present one example or one structure, then you explain, you compare with the native language, and then students start producing sentences, but using some prompts, no, that the teacher gives to them. All right? So this is the deductive method. Sometimes this method is criticized, no? Sometimes we say, oh, teacher, this is boring. Our students are going to be so bored because you present and then you explain and they produce. No, sometimes this is criticized because grammar is taught in an isolated way. No, you separate the grammar from the other aspects of the language and you just focus on the grammar aspect. That's it. Little attention is paid to meaning. You are more focused on the structure, no? If your students made a sentence correctly using the correct structure, no? Sometimes we focus so much on this part, no? On the structure, because most of the time we take some written tests, no? And when we take the written test, what I have to do? So they have to write sentences, no? In a correct form. So in our classes, we focus more on the structure, not so much in the meaning. The practice is often mechanical, no? So they are going to analyze the instruction and try to repeat the same. No, they are going to write sentences and do it again and again and again. No, that's why here this method is criticized, no? There are three major aspects, no? Grammar is taught in an isolated way, little attention is paid to the meaning, and the practice is often mechanical. However, notice here we have some good points of using the deductive way. The deductive method is not without merit, so we are going to analyze some good points, if you could say that. No? It could save time when students are confronted with a grammar rule which is complex, but which has to be learned. Most of the time we use this kind of way of presenting or teaching grammar when we have complex structures, no? That our students are difficult to understand. And in order not to lose too much time, no, because I think this is the most important reason when we use this kind of method, no? The time, no? Because sometimes, I have to finish my class in 1 hour or 1 hour 20. I need to explain this complex structure. But if I do the other way, I'm gonna take a lot of time, no? Because if we use the inductive way, we need more time, all right? So when we use this, we are going to make it in a short time. So here says, that's why here says that we could save time, no? When we teach some complex structures. Another good point using the deductive method is it may help to increase the students' confidence in those examinations which are written with accuracy as the main criterion of success. No? So they are going to feel confident when they have some written exams, because they know how to write a sentence properly, no? So it increases their confidence, no? So notice here these good points related to the deductive method. Now, let's pass to the other side, the inductive method. In the inductive method, we are going to induce the learners, no? The teacher induces the learners to realize grammar rules without any form or explicit explanation. So notice on the other way, we tell our students the structure, we make them to compare maybe with a native language, and then they start producing sentences. Here, we're not going to tell grammar explicitly. Then we're going to tell grammar, but not explicitly. All right? We're going to induce our students to realize about the grammar rules. All right? Realize is to take into account, no? To notice. Remember, is not to do. To notice. They are going to notice. They are going to be sure, aware, no? They're going to be aware of these grammar rules, but in an inductively way. The rules will become evident if the students are given enough appropriate examples. So what are we going to give them? Examples. And they are going to identify, no? With these examples, they are going to realize what the grammar structure is, or the grammatical structure is. Students discover the grammar rules themselves while engaged in language use. Notice how they are going to discover the rules, so the grammar rules, or the grammatical structures, when they are using the language. That's the way that they are going to realize about the structure, no? The grammatical structures, the use of the language. Notice. So here is involved the praxis. No? Notice the three aspects of grammar: structure, meaning, and use. So in the deductive way, we focus more in the structure, a little bit of the meaning. But in the inductive way, we focus more in the use and also the meaning, no? Because the use is related to the meaning, the message that you want to say. And finally, they are going to discover the structure. Notice how we change, no? How we change the way of presenting and teaching grammar. What are the advantages of encouraging learners to work rules out for themselves? Can you give me some ideas? What are the advantages of making our students work rules out for themselves? We are not going to explain the rules. What are the advantages? Can you give me some ideas? Any ideas? Any ideas? What are the advantages, the good points, the benefits of encouraging our students to work rules out for themselves? They are going to discover the rules. We are not going to tell them the rules. They are going to do it by themselves. So what are the advantages of doing that? Can you tell me, do you have an idea? What would be the advantages of doing that? Of using this way of presenting and teaching grammar? Indira, that's good. They don't forget them. Yeah, they are long-term structures, no, in our memory. All right. What else? What else? That's good, Indira. What else?
Teacher, other advantage is improve your language, or maybe improve your grammatical.
Yeah, so they are going to improve the use of the language, no? I mean that you want to say that, no? The use of the language, yeah, all right. And
Yeah,
that way,
yeah.
they improve the use of the grammatical structures, all right? What else? What else? What else? Vanessa, very good. They are autonomous. Very good. They are autonomous. Yeah, Tanya, promote critical thinking. All right, that's right, that's right. Yes, that's good. Well, I don't know exactly what's the name because here says Sala Virtual. I don't know exactly what's the name. Maybe you can change it in order to know who is the person. Yeah, but here says that they may be more into critical and analytical thinking. Yes, that's it. So notice here, there are some advantages, no? For example, one of them is more likely to fit into their existing mental structures. So these structures are going to be fixed in their mind. And that's why, as Indira says, they are not going to forget these structures so easily, right? That's one of the advantages when we use this kind of method. That's why it ensures longer memorability. Longer memorability. The other one is that students are actively involved, attentive, and motivated. They are not so passive, no? In the other way, when the teacher says the rule or shows the structure and starts explaining, well, the students are a kind of passive actors in this process, no? They are just listeners. So in this way, we make our students be more active, be more involved of analyzing the grammatical structure. And that's why they are motivated to acquire, to get this grammatical structure, right? Also, it favors pattern recognition abilities and problem solving. They're going to solve problems, all right? Using the language. Remember that we are talking about the language. No? They are going to use the language. They are going to use these grammatical structures to solve problems. That's why one of you says, no? Some of you says they're going to develop the critical thinking, no? That's good. That's very important when we use this kind of method. Remember. Yeah. If the problem solving is done collaboratively and in the target language, learners get the opportunity for extra language practice. So here, as your partner says, they are going to use the language. So they are going to increase the use of the language because they are going to have extra language practice. Working things out for themselves prepares students for greater self-reliance and is therefore conducive to learner autonomy. No, this is what you said too, no? They are more autonomous, all right? They don't have to depend on the teacher explanation, no, because they do it, no, by themselves. So that's the benefits of using, or advantages of using this kind of method, no, the inductive method. So it's very important to recognize these methods. Sometimes, as I told you before, the deductive method is so criticized, no? But in some occasions, you can use this kind of method. For example, for me, we try to combine these two methods, no? Sometimes maybe we can use in some activities the deductive way, but on the other, you could use the inductive way, no? Because the inductive way is more active, is more engaging. No? So here you have to make your students participate a lot. This is very important. Now, we are going to analyze here some actions that we could do with when we present the grammar inductively. No? Here it says use actions, movements. So you can make your students move, not to be sit all the time. For example, you use this more on children, no? Using the famous TPR, no? For example, you want to teach commands to your students, you want to teach them the imperative, so you use the famous TPR method, no? The total physical response, that you give some instructions and the student need to do it. They must do that, right? That's why here it says use actions. The other one is set up situations to create, no? So you can choose some situations or create situations that they have to be the grammar structure. Remember, the grammatical structure doesn't have to be isolated, separated from the other skills or from the other aspects of the language. In order not to separate the grammatical structure, so you create situations or context where you could use this grammatical structure. The other one is make dialogues. No? You can create dialogues where you can make your students identify or discover the grammatical structure. Another one is when you ask your students to listen to a dialogue and then answer questions highlighting the target structure. So notice that you are practicing the listening skill, but at the same time, you are making your students recognize, no, this is a grammatical structure that you're going to show them, all right? So notice here, they listen to a dialogue, to a conversation, or maybe to a song, no? Then we are going to talk about songs when we talk about the activities. How to use songs, rhymes, poems when we teach grammar. Another one is to ask students to read a text and then answer questions highlighting the target structure again. Now, this is another common activity, no? When you join again the reading skill with the recognition of some grammatical structures. Similar to listening, no? The difference is the kind of language. No? Listening is the oral language and reading is the written language. No? But the purpose is to recognize, no? Some grammatical structures. Using these two skills to make your students participate and identify and discover the grammatical structures. That's why here, notice the difference with a deductive, no? In the deductive way, grammar is isolated. You don't make any connection with listening or speaking or reading, no. Just grammar. You just teach the structure and that's it. You make your students write some sentences with the prompts that you give to them and that's all. This is the deductive way, no? In the inductive way, you connect. And grammar is not separated. Grammar is inside a context. That's why you create situations, you create conversations, dialogues, you connect with other skills, with the listening skill, the reading skill, the speaking skill, so you connect. Notice, you connect. Grammar is inside these skills. That's why, notice when we talk about the definition of grammar, grammar is the way we express, the way we use the language. And why do we use the language? To communicate, some purposes of communication. That's why here we are going to connect, all right? Now, one of the activities, this is related to the deductive way, no? For example, here we are going to start talking about the different activities that we could do to our students to present and teach grammar. One of the ways is the direct explaining, no? The explicit approach. You know, when we say the rule, tell the rules to our students. No? So you can explain a grammar rule directly using the student's mother tongue. Notice, in this way, we could use also the mother tongue. Students can contrast an item of grammar or to present and explain the grammar directly by using English at all times. It is possible to build on what they already know to introduce a new grammar point. So here, notice there are two ways that you could explain. Remember, this is explicit explanation. When you explain the structure to your students, so you could do it in two ways, using the mother tongue or using the target language. For example, here you have, no, this is a worksheet related to the explanation of this grammar aspect, no, this grammatical structure. When you want to teach the nouns, adjectives, and adverbs, you have the table and you start talking, no? Oh, hello, yeah, this is today, no? You can see a picture, what can you see in the picture, and then you start explaining the rule, no? Yeah, the subject and object pronouns. And then notice that you have some sentences, examples. You give some examples, maybe in this part, you can make your students to compare, no? With the native language. And they can recognize. And finally, notice they produce sentences, no? They are going to produce sentences or complete, no? Here it says, write the correct pronouns for these sentences. So notice here, when we explain directly, no, because this is a direct explanation, we could use our mother tongue, or maybe you could use the target language in order to explain this grammatical structure. When we use the target language, we are going to use what they already know. Maybe we can ask some questions. Can you remember about what we talked about, the nouns? Now we are going to use adjectives. So you use the previous knowledge, in order to introduce the new grammar point. So notice this is an activity related to the explicit approach. It means the deductive way. The direct explanation. So here you have some steps when we use this kind of method, to explicit approach. The teacher writes on the board the sentence. Notice, the president phoned the queen. This is an example how to teach. For example, here there's the two different types of questions, subject and object questions. Notice what the teacher does in order to teach in this way. Remember, we're analyzing the explicit approach. So the first thing that the teacher does in this way is the teacher writes on the board the sentence. The president phoned the queen. The second step is the teacher then erases the president and substitutes someone. Notice. So the teacher is replacing the words the president. Instead of the president, now the teacher writes someone. Someone phoned the queen. Notice. Then the teacher elicits or writes a question. So here the teacher could ask, how can we ask a question here with this sentence? Or maybe he writes a question. Who phoned the queen? So the answer is the president. Notice, who phoned the queen? Now, the queen is substituted with someone and elicits a question again. Now we are going to replace the queen. Notice, someone phoned the queen. Who phoned the queen? The president. Now, we change the queen for someone. The president phoned someone. Now the teacher asks students to analyze the difference between the questions. So you have two questions. Who phoned the queen? And who did the president phone? Notice here. So the teacher starts with the structure. Notice, with the structure. The teacher is explaining the structure. When we say a direct explanation, it doesn't mean that the teacher is going to say, yeah, today we're going to talk about these two type of questions. No, this is not good. When you have this kind of grammar aspect, try not to say it exactly, today we're going to talk about grammar aspect related to type of questions. No, this is deductively, but if you notice, you are not saying that you are going to do that, no? So you are showing your students some examples. Notice, in the deductive way, you show your students examples. You don't say what you're going to do, what is the topic. They're going to analyze with you, but you make this just a structure. Notice, this is isolated. This is not in a conversation. This is not in a dialogue, in a story, or in a situation. No, just the structure, the sentence, question, sentence, question. That's why we call them explicit approach. Then the teacher explains, notice, the teacher starts explaining the difference, pointing out that to form questions about the subject, the sentence requires no change in word order. No? Then the teacher then places full picture of famous people, or in the answer of pictures, their names, and connects them with arrows. Notice this is in order to practice. Now, after presenting, the previous activities were connected to the presentation of this structure. Now they are going to use this structure. Now they have recognized this structure. Now they are going to use it. So the teachers draw this, or maybe you could use pictures, drawing these lines, no, with arrows. Madonna is connected to the Pope. The Pope is connected to Martina Hingis. Martina Hingis is connected to Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is connected to Madonna. So what are you going to do here? Related to the verb, no, phone. Madonna phoned the Pope. The Pope phoned Martina Higgins. Martina Higgins phoned Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson phoned Madonna. So you could ask to your students, who phoned Madonna? And say, teacher, who phoned Madonna? Yeah, who phoned Madonna? Yeah, Michael Jackson. And who did Madonna phone? Oh, who did Madonna phone? Oh yeah, the other one. Yeah, the Pope. Notice, they start recognize the structure using this diagram, no? So now the teacher writes on the board more questions and a student to ask and answer in pairs. No? For example, now notice here, in the previous part, this context is impersonal. They are not related on this, no? Because you are talking about foreign people, right? Strange people. Maybe you know, but not personally, right? But on the second, on the last activity, notice now the questions are more personal. Who phoned you yesterday? Or who phoned you this morning? Or who phoned you last weekend? Or who did you phone yesterday? Who did you phone this morning? Who did you phone last weekend? This is very important too. Not just to, for example, most of the time when we make our students to practice, we don't make this practice personal. We just made them practice when they talk about other people, no other context. So one advice is to make it personal about you. They must speak or write about them. That's why here we say that it's more personal. The other ones are impersonal. And the last one is personal. So here the students is more motivated in order to speak or in order to write, right? So notice here, this is the direct explaining. We're using a direct explanation because the teacher is going to explain, no? Notice in this diagram, in the previous one, the teacher is going to explain what's the difference, no? Notice here, no? So the teacher starts saying, the president phoned someone. The president is the subject. The verb is the phone. Someone is the object. And then when you want to make a question, so you categorize, no? You subdivide. The president phone, you use the auxiliary did, and you have someone. Someone becomes the object. That's why we use who. And then we use the auxiliary or the verb, and then we have the auxiliary verb, then the subject, and then the verb. So notice the teacher is explaining. The teacher is explaining But notice it's not just explanation. Remember that. It's not just explanation. Then you have to make your students practice with the prompts that you give to them, all right? So in this case, the teacher uses this diagram, no? This connection with arrows in order to use the same verb, no? Phone. Who phone who, all right? And you use here the two different type of questions, no? The direct, the subject question and the object questions, all right? So notice here, this is the explicit explanation, the explicit approach. Now, let's pass to the other one. Oh, here you have more questions. Sorry. For example, who emailed you? Or who did you email? Who visited you? Or who did you visit? Who wrote to you? Or who did you write to? Yesterday, last week, last weekend, last Christmas. And notice, you make these questions more personal. You have to talk about you, not so impersonal. Another one is the teacher divides the class into groups depending on the class size. Yeah? And the teacher gives out an exercise sheet which requires the students to complete the gaps in the test. Notice here the example, no? Articles. Complete a test by choosing the best word to complete the gap. And or nothing. Sometimes more than one answer may be possible. If you are not sure about an answer, leave it. Your classmate may be able to help you later. And notice here the final instruction, because in the second step, you are going to analyze why. If you are not sure about an answer, leave it. Your classmates may be able to help you later. In the second step, the teacher asks the groups to work on this exercise and gives them 5 minutes to do this. Notice, then he hands out 3 grammar summaries. So the teacher gives the theory, the grammar rules to each group, but not the 3 together. So each group has just one summary. For example, one group received the summary of the explanation of the definite article. The second group, the explanation about the indefinite article. And the third group has the explanation of the zero article, no? Because in English we don't use some cases the article, no article. So each group has different summaries. Notice, it doesn't mean here that you are going to give the 3 explanations to every group. No. You are going to give the explanation of one aspect of this topic, that is the articles, to different groups. That's why here says that you have to give to each group just one summary, A, B, or C. A could be the definite article, B the indefinite article, and C the zero article. So with this explanation, that's why here says, if you don't know the answer, you can leave it. Your classmate may be able to help you later. So in step 3, the teacher regroups them in such a way that the new groups comprise members of each of the original groups. Then he checks the exercise in open class. Notice again, the teacher checks the exercise in open class. So now the teacher groups again, but joining. This is one group 1. One member of group 2 and one member of group 3 come together because you have the 3 summaries, right? The 3 summaries. One has the summary of the definite article, the second has the summary of the indefinite article, and the third has the no article explanation. So now they have, in this new group, now they have the 3 explanations, and now they can help each other in order to answer all the space, to complete all the gaps. That's what here says in the instruction. If you don't know the answer, leave it. You can leave it because your classmate may be able to help you later. So notice here this activity. It's in a different way. It's in a different way. So students discover the grammar rather than telling them what it is. do this by choosing a test. Notice this is another activity containing lots of examples of the target grammar. For example, if the test includes regular verbs in the past simple form, ask the students to underline all the verbs in the test. Then ask them to say what they notice about the verbs, which will be that they end in ed. Now, this is a very common activity, no? Most of the course books use this kind of activity, no? They present a test, they do some reading comprehension exercises, and then you pass to the grammatical aspect. In the grammatical aspect, you have to go back to the reading. So it could be an article, a blog, or an essay, a short essay, I don't know. And the students are going to recognize the grammatical structure inside the test. So here we have this generative situation. So you create a situation, a context. Notice the difference with the previous one. In the other one, there is no context. The students just recognize, no, or the teacher explains the grammatical structure. But here, no. Here, you have a context, a situation. A factory needs workers. Yesterday, Bill read the advertisement in the paper. It said these things. We're a very large firm, pay very high wage, and have a good pension scheme. Bill is at the factory today. He now knows that all the things are not true. At this moment, he is saying these things to the manager. You said you were a very large firm, but you are a really small one. You said you pay high wages, but they are really very low. You said you had a good pension scheme. You really haven't one at all. So notice, what is the structure that we are focusing on this test? Is related to the indirect speech or reported speech, right? So in this situation, in this context, in this test, you focus on one structure, right? And this is the indirect speech or reported speech. So we call these activities a generative situation, all right? So you create or you choose, then we're going to talk about this. You are going to create a situation, or you are going to choose from some text or articles, and you can use them to generate a situation. Notice this is the difference with the previous activities. No? In the previous activities, just the structure, no? You just make your students to recognize the structure, and that's it. To analyze, to identify, and then to use this structure. But here, no. Here you put the structure into a situation, into a context. By generative situation, we mean a situation that can generate a lot of the kind of language you wish to focus. No? That's why we call them generative situation, because we can find a lot of examples of the structure that we want to focus, all right? Of the language that we want to focus. You can present it by using a story or flashcards. No? For example, in the previous one, you could see that it was presented like a story, right? But also you could use it as using flashcards. So here we are going to find some situations, and you have to tell me what would it be the target grammar or the target language that you want to focus. For example, two friends are trying to arrange a time to see each other. What would it be the grammar that you want to focus, or the language that you want to focus? What would it be? Notice the situation is two friends are trying to arrange a time to see each other. What would it be the grammar, the target grammar focused? Oh yeah, Bethy, yes. This is in present simple, no? Who phones? But the other was in past. Who phoned, no? But it's in present simple, yes. Because this who is taken as he or she. Yeah, who phones. Yeah, tell me, what would be the target grammar according to this situation? No, nobody, no ideas? Notice the situation is that two friends are trying to arrange a time to see each other. What would be the grammatical structure that you want to focus? That's why the connection, no? Notice, you connect the grammatical structure with a situation. No, nobody, no ideas? Luis says using future with be going to. All right. Yeah, so notice here, yeah, it's possible to use going to, yeah, so it's correct to use also going to, but notice here that you could use also the present continuous. What are you doing next Tuesday? Notice arrange. Notice the meaning of this word arrange, arrangements, so fixed plans. No? Arrangement is a fixed plan. And when you talk about fixed plans, you use the present continuous better. No? But sometimes you could use also going to. No? But notice here the situation and the target grammar. You don't separate just the grammar. No. So you connect this grammar, this grammatical structure with a situation. Another one. A memorable holiday. What would it be, the grammatical structure? Yes, no? Past simple. I went to Quitos last year. Yeah. Yes, we could use also the past continuous. We give some specific time. No, remember that we use the past continuous when we talk about an actions in progress with a definite or specific time. No, that's right. No, this is some examples. No, you could adequate. No, remember this is not just fixed. No. You have to use just the present continuous. No. So you can adapt it. No, you can adapt it. All right. Now, another one. A sales representative and a customer. This is the situation. A sales representative and a customer. What would be the target grammar or the target language? Nobody else? Any other grammatical structure related to a sales representative and a customer? As I told you, the ideas that I'm giving you here, it means that they are fixed, they are the only ones. No, you can adapt. No, you can adapt this. The most important here is to recognize that you use situations. Notice, you use situations to give to your students examples of these grammatical structure. This is the most important. Yeah, indirect questions, simple presences, Veronica. Yeah, order of adjectives and clauses, Indira. All right. Yeah, for example, I put here conditionals. If you buy this, you'll never need to, no, so you're offering, no? You're offering your product using a conditional clause or conditional sentence, sorry. Notice, so you could use different, as I told you, it doesn't mean that you have to use conditional. No. It depends, no? It depends on the situation or the context that you are going to use this one, no? And you can adapt it, no? You can adapt it. All right, and one last, planning a long trip. This is the situation, planning a long trip.
Future, of course.
Future. All right, future. Future tense. All of you says the future tense. So here I put a reason clauses. We need a sleeping bags because it's going to be cold. So you use here going to. You're talking about plans, intentions, and also you use the reason clauses. No? You are planning a long trip. No? So you're talking about the things that you're going to need for your trip. So we need a sleeping bags because it's going to be cold. Or we need sweaters because it's going to be cold. Or we need some umbrellas because it's going to rain. Notice, You're using here going to, but also you are using the reason clause. No? Notice here these structures. So here, notice how we are going to present grammar to our students. So you are going to give them situations, and with these situations, they are going to identify. That's why here says discovering grammar. They are going to discover the grammar, showing them some examples. No, you have here examples of this structure. Now, the other way is using tests. There are three ways of obtaining a written test. Find a real, authentic test that contains the structure that you want to focus. Find a real, authentic test, but you can rewrite it slightly. You change, no? You adapt this test according to the grammatical structure that you want to focus. And the other one is that you create it. You write a test yourself. No? So we have three ways in order to obtain a written test. You can use a real and authentic test that contains this grammatical structure, or you can find this real authentic test, but you can change this a little bit. No? Or you can write it by yourself. No? You can create it. Here you have some techniques that is very important when we use tests and when we make our students identify these structures. For example, one of the tasks that we use is find example of this grammatical structure. So here you write X, no? Find example of X and underline them. No, this is the most simple one, right? That you give a test and you make your students, yeah, okay, underline the examples of the present perfect, and all the students. No? For example, I use this technique a lot on the board, and yeah, volunteers, and they start running. Now, yeah, teacher, me, yeah, another one, or maybe in groups. No? It depends on you. No, it depends on you how you make your students participate. The other one is to find examples of X and underline them along with words next to them. Here, for example, you use this for practicing collocations and word partnerships, quantifiers with countable and uncountable nouns. No? Yeah, find examples of or da, the articles. No? And what is the next word? Identify what is the next word. Or some or any, and the next word. What is the next word? So a teacher, after some, yeah, you have this. After a lot of, you have this. No? So notice the word and the next word, not just the grammatical structure, the other one. Another task that you could do is to find examples of X and circle them along with what they refer to. Notice, remember when we talk about in the writing skill, reference, no? Reference, we use pronouns in order to replace nouns, no? In order to avoid repetition. Now we are going to do the other side. They have a test and you have to tell your students to identify which word is related to this pronoun, or this pronoun is related or is reference to which word. So notice here you have practiced, no? You practice here the pronouns. Another task is find examples of X and change them to similar words. For example, you can practice here modal verbs. Change the word will to might. No, you find here on the test and they underline it and they could change it according to the context. No? It depends on the context. And finally, one of the tasks is find examples and think about why the writer of a speaker used that word or phrase. So it is good for practicing modal verbs or articles again. So they start analyzing, they start identifying, they start discovering the grammar. Notice there are different ways that your students can discover the grammar. They analyze, oh yeah, teacher, yeah, here examples of the present perfect. Yeah, I remember, yeah, this is have plus, yeah, they start underlining. Or maybe you give, or you start first with the first underlined word. And with this example, So, yeah, teacher, half and the ed or half of the past part, yeah. So they start looking for more examples. Now notice, here you have to use the test. The other one is students discover the grammar by analyzing some sentences or structures. They are given some exercises to identify the rule. This is called guided discovery. So on the previous one, notice they just have test. Here, no. They have just some structures, some sentences, and some exercises that guide them to analyze or to identify the grammatical structure. For example, notice here this. Find the rule. Notice, this is very common also in the course books. No? Find the rule. Look at this sentence. You know Norman, Joe, don't you? They work every day. So notice you have different sentences. Then you have a question. There is a final S on the verb only with certain subjects. What are they? So notice this exercise is guiding. That's why here it says guide discovery. It's guiding the student to find the grammatical structure. Which of the subjects, which subjects take the S? So they have to read again the sentences, no? You know, no S. They work, no S. Joe talks. Yeah, Joe, yeah, he. We always go, the agency offers. The agency, it. Yeah, and check, no? They start checking. And then they apply the rule. Circle the right verb. Notice, this is called guided discovery because the exercises, the tasks, the activities help, in other ways, help the students to discover this grammatical structure. And then they can use it. The other way is using pictures or drawings. For example, look at this picture. What would it be the purpose of the teacher to present these pictures? What kind of a grammatical structure is he going to focus? Look at the picture. What can you see? What would be the grammatical structure that the teacher wants to focus? No ideas, no ideas? Tell me please. What would be the grammatical structure? It's easy. Notice the first picture. Notice the first picture. The man. Aha, young. Oh, indeed, it says present, simple present. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, Luis is expressing preferences with would. John says planning a trip, future tense. Betty says dreams of a future vacation. Aha. Tanya says present progressive. All right. So notice here. So this is a quick sketch on the board can illustrate a grammar point very quickly. Using pictures or drawings, you can make your students identify quickly what is the grammatical structure that they are going to analyze or practice. For example, a picture of a person, as you can see here, dreaming of a future ambition can be used to introduce be going to talk about future intentions. No? I'm going to travel to New York. I'm going to travel to the desert. I'm going to ride a horse. Or I'm going to ski. And notice, future intentions. Now, but depends, remember, it doesn't mean that this is the only structure that you can practice with these pictures. It depends on your context, how you adapt it. All right? But you could use, notice, you could use pictures to make your students discover the grammar, They are going to identify, notice, we're talking about future intentions, plans, and the teacher says going to, yeah, okay, yeah. So they recognize, using pictures. It could be Flor wishes. Yeah, Juan Carlos, exactly. The other one is using diagrams. You can present or teach grammar using diagrams. Diagrams to present grammar are especially helpful to visual learners and help give it an order. It's a good idea to prepare the diagram clearly before on a piece of paper, no, so you want, if it is the first time you're using it. For example, you have this diagram. No, this is very common too when we talk about grammar. No, for example, we call this diagram clients. Clients. Don't forget about the name. Clients. Here, for example, you have this diagram related to the adverbs of frequency. No, from the bigger to the less. No, 100%, 0%. And also you have a sentence, no, below in order to identify the use of the adverbs of frequency, no? Always, usually, frequently, often, sometimes, until the final that is never, declines. Or you could use some arrows, no? Notice here you use these arrows to differentiate these verbs, no? The use of gone or been in the present perfect. Notice here, gone, been. What is the difference? He has gone to Singapore. Yeah, notice the arrow. The arrow is a linear arrow. But the second one, he has been to Singapore. So how is the form of the arrow? Oh, teacher, he's going back. He returned. Yes, notice. This visual aid helps you to make your students identify the grammatical structure or differences in this case. No, the linear arrow, he has gone to Singapore. It means that he went to Singapore and he hasn't returned yet. But the other one, he went to Singapore and he has already returned. This is the difference. He has gone, he has been. Using these arrows. You're using the arrows. The other one is the timeline. No? This is very common too, using timelines. I have had many different jobs. Yeah. What is the intention of this timeline? Notice past and now. Different jobs. So there is a connection between the past and the present. No? In different moments, he had different jobs. So notice you use here the timelines. This is another type of diagram, the timelines. And also, again, you have here the arrows. This is very common too, to talk about the inversion. No? The inversion when you use the verb be in questions. You are a student. Are you a student? So you made the inversion. No? So this is helpful. Remember, using diagrams is helpful because it makes your students give an order, no, to the structures. Using stories. Like using a written test, an oral test, notice this is a story but in an oral way. An oral test told by the teacher is another effective way to present a grammar point. Notice that this is different with the previous one, no? When you use a test, no, could be created or you can change it a little bit, or maybe you use as it was presented. But here, this is in a written language. No, this is in an oral language. So you tell the story or storytelling. No, this is a famous technique, no, storytelling. So you tell the story to your student. Instead of in a written form, you tell them. So what do you need to do? First, you have to prepare your story. Make sure that you include examples of the grammar you'd like to highlight, but not so many as to make the story sound weird. No, this is very important. Not too many examples, because remember this is oral. Sometimes they are going to get confused or the story is not so natural. All right, remember it's a story. You're going to tell a story to your students. Then tell the students that you are going to share a story about something that happened to you. Notice, personal, that happened to you. Very important. Tell, don't read the story. That you don't have to have a piece of, oh, just a minute, I'm going to read, yeah, listen. No, 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 no. Tell the story. No papers with you, all right? Try to make it natural as you can. That's why here it says storytelling, no? So you're going to tell the story. So here you need to practice, because if you don't know exactly what is the structure or what kind of vocabulary, that's why here it says that you need to prepare it, no? You need to prepare it. So this is very important. Ask the students to work in pairs. Now, after telling your story, you can ask your students to work in pairs and recount as much of the story as they can remember to each other. And notice, they're going to retell the story. All right? They are going to retell the story as much as they can remember, no? Ask one pair to feed back to the rest of the class. Notice, one pair to feed back to the rest of the class. Then, now, ask specific comprehension questions about your story. This should relate to parts of the story which included a target grammar. Now you are going to make questions to your students, and in these questions, you are going to focus the target grammar or the target language. Try to elicit the sentences that contain the grammar you want to present. You can write it on the board. So here you have to elicit. After asking your students about some grammatical parts according to the story, remember, you elicit. Try to elicit the sentences that contain the grammar you want to present, or you can write it on the board. Now, you can point out the specific grammar by underlining, explaining, or use a guided discovery. So you could use another activity, using maybe the guided discovery, or maybe the deductive way, so they have to identify, they have to underline, all right? So notice here, you use stories, but remember, orally, this is orally, no written. Another one that is very common too is using objects, sometimes called realia. For example, if you want to present the comparative form is bigger than, smaller than, the simplest way is to find two objects and contrast them. So you can bring to the class some objects, one bigger than the other one, and you show to your students, two cups, for example, Okay, my dear students, look at these two cups. This cup is bigger than this one. Notice, you use these objects as realia to make your students identify the grammatical structure. Alternatively, ask two students to stand up and compare their height. Maybe they can compare their height to produce a sentence like Harry is taller than Tom. Or write a sentence on the board and underline the comparative form so the students notice the construction. Your sentence and the sentence that they created or you elicit to create it. So then you underline, what is the construction of the sentence. Using concordance lines. For example, this activity, I think this is for upper intermediate students because it involves a lot of tests, right? For example, a concordance line is a piece of data taken from a corpus, so a bigger test, a random sample of uses of a particular word or words used to highlight a piece of language. Notice this. Oh, I think the image is not so well. Can you notice? Yes? Can you notice here? If you notice, you have a test, but in this test, one word is repeated. Manage. If you notice here, you have the word manage. Manage a crisis, manage action, to manage, enough to manage, I'll manage. So notice, you can make your students to identify what expressions are related to manage, no? What is before and after the word manage. So we call this a concordance line. Yes, I think the letter is too small. Yeah, but here, let me tell you that this blue word is manage, manage. And it is repeated in the lines of these tests a lot of times, a lot of times. So you make your students to identify, yeah, manage, to manage, to manage a crisis. So here you have some collocations, no? Or maybe some verbs, no? I can manage, I could manage, if I can manage, who never managed to attain. Notice here you have manage plus an infinitive, no? Manage to attain. So they identify different structures with the word manage. I think this is better. This is another example with the word on. Motorists from the southeast can also reach Somerset on the M3 and A303. The prices given are a guideline for the reader and are normally based on the cost of one person. Notice the different structures with the word on. Reach on, based on, further on, and notice here the different structures. So we call this, remember, we call this activity, this task, concordance lines. When you have a test and you have one word or one structure repeated a lot of times, and you make your students to recognize, no, different structure with this word or structure, no? If what is before, what is next, no? What kind of words are before, what kind of words are next? And notice, we use this activity to do these tasks, no? To recognize. They can recognize different structures with some specific words or structures at the same time. So this is called, remember, concordance lines. Now, using songs. This is very common too nowadays, to use songs, rhymes, poems in order to make our class be more motivated. No? One of the reasons to use songs is to motivate our students with the music. No? For example, the last class when we were talking about the writing skills, no, we talked about that we could use songs not just as an environment, no, as an environmental background, no, to maybe promote the quietness or relax to our students to write, no. We also use songs to generate ideas. So here, the song has a similar purpose. It's not just to create an environment, no. We're going to use songs to recognize some structures, no? Grammatical structures. So there are various ways of using songs in the classroom. It depends on the level of the students, the interest and the age of the learners, the grammar point to be studied, and the song itself had determinant roles on the procedure. Some examples of these techniques are gap fills or close test. No, remember gap fills to complete, no, to complete the spaces. Close test is similar to gap filling, but with a determined number of words. No, for example, after 8 words, you have a space. 8 words, another space. Another 8 words, another space. So we call this close test. Close test. true or false statements. So maybe you make your students read some parts of the song and you made some questions, no? And they have to say if it is true or false. Put these lines into the correct sequence. Here also you practice the listening too, no? And the speaking. Circle the antonyms, synonyms of the given words. Or maybe you made to recognize, no? The prepositions, for example. Sometimes you practice with prepositions or to recognize the tense, no? So you write the two alternatives, went or have gone. And they have to listen and recognize, have gone. And the other says went. No? Maybe you can practice the past simple and present perfect. No? So notice here, you have this kind of activity with different techniques that you could use in order to make your students recognize, identify the grammatical structures, no? Using songs. And finally, the discussion. No? This is for more advanced level students. No? At the end, what do you think about the lyrics of the song? Do you think it's right? Do you agree with this? And you start discussing. No? You start discussing. Why do you think the writer used these tense? No? If you apply to the grammatical structure, why do you think the writer used the past simple in this song? Yeah, teacher, because this song is related to a past story, no? So they are discussing, they are talking about this grammatical structure. Or you could say, what kind of a structure did the writer use in this song? They use the used to, for example, no? Used to, because the person is talking about past routines, and they start discussing. And notice here. So here we have different techniques that we could use with songs. And finally, this is another fun way to teach and present grammar, no? Using games. This is very important, no? Try not to be grammar aspect, it's boring, no. You can make it fun using games. So here, one of the most common is using this game, no? The hot potato. Have you ever used this activity, hot potato? Have you ever used it?
No.
No, hot potato. Sometimes we do it with a balloon. I don't know if you have used with a balloon. You play a music, no? You play a music, and then you play the music, and the students pass the balloon, no? Pass the ball, and when you stop, the student must do something, right? Yes, I know that you have done this, no? This is called hot potato, but here is hot grammar potato. So the teacher chooses a category such as verbs and gives a small ball or other easy to pass item, the hot potato, to a student. The teacher plays music or sets a timer, and while the music plays, the student with a hot potato must shout out of an example of the topic and then pass the potato to the next person. For example, we are going to practice the present simple, remember, so you say, if you are with the ball when I stop the music, you must say a routine about yourself. And the student is going to practice this, notice. So you play the game, but you are making your students practice this grammatical structure. But notice in a context, in a situation, no, you say, tell me simple present tense sentences, no more. No. Try to give them situations, context, purpose of communication. So you are going to write, or you are going to tell me one of your routines, or you are going to tell what you did yesterday to practice the past simple, no? Or you have to tell me about your experiences, your past experiences, using the present perfect, but using the game. You're using the game to practice the grammar aspect. Notice, this is a hot potato. I used this specifically with the first grade of secondary. They love this game. They throw the ball everywhere in order not to be caught because they don't want to say something, no? All right, okay. Students can pass a potato until they call out a correct example. Notice they cannot pass if they don't say the correct example. And the student with a potato when the music or timer stop is out. So if he doesn't produce any sentence, so if the person doesn't say anything, so he's out. And then you do it again. No? Notice this is called the hot potato. And remember that. Another one is the conjunction be. For this game, students are given an irregular verb and a tense. Yeah, this is an idea you can use with any other grammatical structure. Students are given an irregular verb and a tense. They must correctly say the conjugated verb or be eliminated from the be. So this is, they are going to mean like a circle, right? The winner is the last student standing. No? So here you have, in this they are going to practice using this grammatical structure. No? As I told you before, it doesn't mean that you have to practice just the regular verb. No, you could use it with other grammatical structures too. To increase the difficulty of this game requires students to correctly spell the conjugated verb. And so in order to make it more complicated, no? And finally, we have the grammar drama. Here you make your students move, all right? Physical movement can break up the monotony of a grammar class and re-engage student interest. One way to get students moving is to have them come up with quick sticks to showcase a grammar rule. As with the grammar posters, the sillier skits usually stick out, so this is a good opportunity for students to get creative as well as move around the room. No? So they are going to move and stick some skits with some grammatical rules, identify, for example, teacher, you have to recognize all your partners, the present perfect tense. So they move on, no, this is not present perfect, no. The other, no, this is not present perfect, no, this is present perfect. And stick out, from your partner's back. So this is very important, to move. They move, they interact. They are not just sitting. This is one important thing to make your students motivated and to be engaged, to be involved on this process of recognizing, identifying, or practicing the grammatical structures. All right? Okay, so here you have the different ways, in order to present grammar. So here you have a lot of ideas. Then on the WhatsApp group, I'm gonna send you a book, with more games, because there are a lot of games, there are a lot of games. So I'm going to send you in the chat one book. I have here one book with 50 or 60, I can't remember exactly, 50 or 60 games that you can use to practice or present grammar, all right? So maybe in 1 hour, I'm gonna upload it. So we are going to stop here. We are going to stop here. That's all for today. I hope you can get some ideas in order to practice grammar. Remember, it's important, it's important to teach grammar to our students. But as I told you the last class, the way we teach is very important too, because sometimes we think, teacher, grammar, no, it's too boring. My students are gonna get bored. But it depends on the way you teach it. If you teach it in different ways, using different methods, it doesn't mean that, the deductive is completely wrong. No, this is not the way. You can use in some situations the deductive, but try to make grammar more inductively. This is very important to make your students participate, active, to be more autonomous. You give me the benefits or the advantages of teaching grammar inductively. So this is very important to do, all right? Well, that's all for today. Remember, the next class, we are going to pass to another topic. It's not another module, it's another topic inside this module. Remember that this module has two topics, grammar and vocabulary. So the next class, the next session, we're going to start talking about vocabulary. Another important aspect when we teach a language, no? The vocabulary. So the next two classes are related to vocabulary. Don't miss it, please. Don't miss it, all right? So that's all. See you next week. Take care a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. See you next
Bye,
week. Bye-bye.
teacher. It
Bye,
was an
teacher.
interesting
See you
class.
next class.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice
Take
weekend.
care.